Good morning, folks. I'm up at the right time. It's a little bit after 4 in the morning. Got up for years. Drove 45 minutes, 45 miles to the prison. Went to work. Went through the Sally Port. Went to work. 10 hours. And then 45 minutes back home. It's a 12-hour day. Go to bed exhausted. Well, I'd usually chew my food and eat in the kitchen and walk through the living room on the way up to bed because I had to go to bed early, get up at 4 in the morning, and I look at my beautiful living room and say, gee, it sure is a beautiful room. Too bad I don't spend any time in it. But it was good to be working. It's good to be working now. I woke up thinking, I need to tell you. And this is probably something that, well, we'll see how this goes. I'm hoping I can tell you the story, and this is one of the lectures from Dr. Aronzula. We never used her first name at all. It's always Dr. Aronzula, too. Her first name was Elizabeth, and unfortunately, things didn't go well, and her husband turned out to be, well, not up to par, so she divorced him. And I'm rather proud of her for doing that. I found out about it from the Jesuits in charge of the University of Gonzaga a Firenze, in Florence, in Italia, in Italy. I went to school there many years ago. And I can't remember how to say it, but my librarian made sure to teach me how to say, Ho abito a Firenze molti anni fa. I lived in Florence many years ago, and at this point, it's true. It's true. That was after I died, which was a little bit over 50 years ago. It was when I was turning 21. That was when I was questioning the country. And the saying that was going around from those who didn't like us, who were questioning things, or maybe it was from us, I can't remember, but the saying was, fix it or fuck it. Love it or leave it. So I decided I would leave it, and I would see, did I really love America? Would I like it better abroad? So that was a major impetus. And plus, it seemed like a good idea to do. I mean, it just appealed to me, especially because I was going to go get to see the Promised Land, the Holy Land, and I was going to go see the pyramids. That didn't work out. Oh my God. The Israelis suckered Egypt into another war, and we weren't allowed to travel freely to those places. So they rerouted us for the Christmas holidays, and we ended up taking buses and trains, an old steam train. My God, that was a trip. Dan Muzo got me hung over pretty badly. And I remember taking the train on Christmas Day, and I remember being in the station behind the Iron Curtain in a communist nation, and how impoverished, how poor it was. And I got to see Vlad the Impaler, Count Dragula, not Dracula, Dragula with G's. Gee. That reminds me, the Rockefeller's original name had two names in it too. Folks, we've been had. The people that run this world have hidden their tracks. They've censored literature for thousands of years. They have screwed everything up so you can't get the truth, and you can't get solid foundations. Anytime we come up with a new invention or a new treatment or new brilliance, a good idea, they got in there and they changed it. Forgive me. You may think I'm kidding, Yeah, you would say, nah, you ain't serious, Dr. Kent. You don't mean that. Nobody would ever do that. Oh, yeah. They sure did. And by the way, Count Dracula, or Vlad the Impaler, had a huge bed. He was a giant. And all that royalty in Europe brags about descending from that one man. But we have what's called regression to the mean. Regression towards the mean is the actual saying, I believe. And what that means is you take these extremes, these highs, these lows, and they regress, they even out. And so that's kind of what humans are today. What we call humans, and we claim it's all one species, all one mankind. And so some of us are still pretty tall, pretty gianty, and some of us are doggone short. I mean tiny. And in the previous Earth age, there were some little guys that are about 12 inches tall, and you may feel sorry for them, but their technology was so much more advanced than ours. They left their records in cobalt discs, high up in the mountains. This Earth age is actually dumbed down compared to the Earth ages. We don't have it so good. But I think the most important thing is the impoverishment of our minds, the poverty of our souls. We fail to recognize many things because we've been so controlled, so dumbed down, so brainwashed, given so many false concepts, false dogmas. It's amazing that we're still alive. I took pictures of Count Dracula's bed in the castle, and I'm going to take a guess he was 11 feet tall. He was well over 9 feet tall. He could have been 13 or 14 feet tall. Big dude. Really big dude. And what was he famous for? He saved his country. How did he save his country? Oh, he sacrificed maybe 20,000 of his own peasants. His nation was going to get invaded again. Who was it that was invading? The Byzantine Empire, Turkey, Persia. What's the name of that country that crossed over and went into Greece? Oh my God. The 300 warriors, the pass. Oh my Lord. I wish I could remember that. They held a huge army off at the pass. Spartans went up and did that. They fought as a unit. Oh my Lord. And they cut them off at the passes. They were warned by a runner. The first marathon race, by the way, was the guy who warned them. And he ran. It was his job to run and deliver messages. And back then they ran barefooted and naked. And so this guy was running for his life. And he gave up his life. At the end of that marathon run, he got to the king and told him about the coming invasion. And then he died. I always wanted to run a marathon, but then again, I told people, the first marathon runner, he died. I don't think that's for me. I don't think that's a good idea. I just wish I could remember the names of that pass. I just haven't talked about this in a long time. Somebody put that in the comments for me. Come on, I know I don't have much of an audience. I had 10 subscribers of the day. Maybe I got more today. I hope so. They stopped him in the pass. And the sad thing was that the enemy found out about the goat path to get around and behind the Greeks. And it was a big army. Anyway, I wanted to talk about dualism, Descartes' dualism. And Dr. Aronzula gave this wonderful lecture. And I will tell you right now, if anybody can get a hold of Dr. Aronzula, and that's not her name today, she went back to her maiden name. She left Florence. She went home to England. She has a doctorate in English. She seems to be the expert on the Elizabethan era. I keep trying not to say error and say era, but it was definitely an error back then. Yeah, my family was involved. The world doesn't know that, but it was Dr. Elizabeth Aronzula who basically was lecturing me about my own family. And the question I have for Dr. Aronzula is, Dr. Aronzula, did you know you were telling me about my family, the Kents? I didn't realize it. Maybe you did. I'm just wondering. I'm kind of slow. I'm a little on the retarded side. It takes me a long time to learn. I had to keep going back to school. When I went to school, it was wonderful. We talked about anything and everything. And when we debated things, we often changed sides. It was an intellectual argument. Today, you can't do that. I wouldn't go on the university campuses for anything. And if you folks out there that think schools are a good idea, scrools, as Rush Limbaugh used to call them, they're not. It's nothing more than a prison camp. Why were we the best country in the world? Because we didn't educate like we do today. This is a screw job. How did we educate? Well, I met an old teacher one time. I had settled an accident and I had a big settlement. Trying to figure out what to do with the money. Ultimately, I went to graduate school. And that's the only way I got the doggone insurance agents off my back. They were doing their best. They ganged up on me and they wanted to force me to accept an annuity. I didn't want no damn annuity. I wanted a Porsche. Matter of fact, I had driven the car. I had picked it out. It was only $72,000. And I had $103,000 to spend. I decided to go to graduate school. I know where the car is, and it's wasting away. I'd like to have it, but it's kind of low to the ground now, so I prefer to have a Cayenne over that little turbo. But I would take it. I didn't like the colors too much of it back then, but today I think I could drive it quite well. It's really a Desert Southwest color scheme, and the inside looks like a damn Nico candy, piece of candy. It's got that kind of magenta color on it. It looks real plastically. I really didn't care for that much. And the seats were plaid seats. They were a little hot looking back then. Today they're a little garish, but this is a time machine. This is an old rig. I'd leave it just the way it is. It's a little bit too flamboyant of a car. I don't know. A good car for a gay man. Yeah, I wanted special privileges on my new channel. And so as I applied for each level, up comes the identity screen. If you identify as any one of these, then we're going to bolster your channel. And what is it they want to bolster more than anything else? Well, some people wisely call them inverts because they live their lives inverted as opposites. And I think that's to set an example, to throw the rest of us all off, to screw us up, and to support their God. You know, the one with the horns and the breasts and the star and the beard. Kind of a weird dude, right? Don't know what it is. Well, I guess I'm kind of a weird dude and you don't know what it is. My friends used to say, you're a believer? They couldn't believe I loved God. They couldn't believe I believed. Thinking, what the hell am I doing wrong that they think otherwise of me? How am I a bad witness? Well, I guess I was, and my profession, a psychologist, didn't help any. I was telling you earlier in my other video the other day the story. I was in a very large singles um, Bible class. We had 95 singles in that room on average. Slightly more females than males, not many. Pretty well matched, and we actually had tables and groups that we got used to sitting and getting to know each other. And I sat at a table that had a few nurses in it. And by that time, we were all older. I'd never been married, and these nurses had already been divorced. They had already been traumatized, and it was very interesting. I probably could have had a good wife from that group. Who knows? And we had some flamboyant people that did things very unchristian-like, and they went through the men in the room like you wouldn't believe. It's kind of hard to believe they do that, but now that we understand more about the nature of women, it's understandable. Anyway, we're sitting at the table, and this guy happens to sit at the table, and he's going on about, I guess we're doing sort of a group session in terms of supporting each other and talking about some of the issues of the week or something like that. And he's going on about his buddy who's a psychologist, and he can't be a Christian. No psychologist could be a Christian. The women at the table already knew me and who I was, what I was about, where I worked, and all that. They knew I was a psychologist, so I just kept my mouth shut and I just nodded my head and looked at him. Yeah, okay, yeah. And he went on and told the story. I just let him go. I mean, what was I supposed to say? And at the very end, for some reason, he looked at me and he said, You, what are you? We were pretty much all professionals around the table. And I said, Why, I'm a psychologist, of course. And he refused to believe it. No, that can't be true. That can't possibly be true. Psychologists can't be Christians. That was kind of funny. But Descartes had dissected cats and mapped the nervous systems in particular. He used nicotine, which was coming from the New World. It was a rare substance, precious, valuable substance at that time, and it was used to stain the nervous system. And he had dissected a cat and published a book, a color volume book on a cat's internal organs. And of course, he was making money off these. I mean, back then, books were really expensive, very dear. So these authors got, they didn't have a printing press then. I don't think that existed at that time. Maybe it did, but it would have just been getting started. But certainly, color pictures would have had to have been done by an illustrator, if not the author himself. So he decided he was going to take on the big cat. He was going to dissect a human being and map out the parts of the body. That wasn't allowed. Il Papa, the Pope in Rome, wouldn't permit it. The body was considered sacred, hollow, and you're not allowed to dissect it. It was sacrilege to do that. Now, the Pope at that time, I'm trying to remember, Benedict, Clementine, whatever. The Pope at that time had spies everywhere. And in order for Descartes to be able to publish his book, because it was against the law to do what he was doing, and he hired gravediggers to go steal the bodies for him. So it was kind of ballsy of him. It took some gumption to go hire people and deal with those dead bodies and keep it all, so he thought, secret. But he had already finished the book. It was like, I can't do anything with this. I mean, I can't let anybody know. I can't publish it. I can't make money off this thing. So he made a trip from France to Italy down to Rome to see the Pope. And he thought that he was, well, I don't think he thought he was going to pull one over on the Pope, but I'm pretty certain he didn't realize that the Pope already knew. You see, the Pope had spies everywhere, intelligence everywhere. Yeah, and they still control all of these intelligence agencies around the world and the secret societies. We'll talk about that another time. Anyway, Descartes approaches the Pope. The Pope already knew what the question was. The Pope had, in his wisdom, had already figured out the answer. He already figured out what he was going to do. He was going to give Descartes permission to dissect the human body. And it was actually uttered as, I can't quite get this right. I wish Dr. Aronzula would do some lectures. Man, but she'd be worth watching. You may have the body, or you may keep the body, so long as you recognize that the seat, that this seat has authority over the soul. So what this did historically was this created what we call dualism, where the mind-body was split. This is an important concept because I keep forgetting about it. And I was asked about this during my dissertation, my interview, when I had to go defend my dissertation, and I locked up. And hell, I was educated in Italy. I knew the story better than any other graduate student there. And my doggone chair had to go rescue my ass on that one. He had to step in because I was tongue-tied and my mind was locked up. And he wanted me to demonstrate that I knew this great thing, and most people didn't. And I was trained as a behavioral psychologist. It was the most rigorous training possible, the most scientific, and it gave me an edge on all my fellow graduate students because they didn't have that background. I had been trained in a rat lab, in learning, and most of them didn't have that opportunity. Anyway, that's when we get the body-mind split. And so you and I walk around, and pay attention to this. We think of the soul as being separate from the body. This is an important concept. It's a subtle concept. I need you to get it. I need you to understand. Bear with me here, because I'm going to take this somewhere. And I'm just going to make the leap and hope you get it. Have some faith that you can follow me. So today, you and I walk around, and we think of a separatism. We think of a great divide. Now, who would it be that we would be separated from? Who would it be that we talk to each other, and we all have this assumption that we are separate? Who are we separate from? We're separate from our God, Yahweh. Okay? Hold that in mind. We're separate from God. We've sinned. All have sinned and fallen short. We've sinned, and as a result, there's a great gap there. It was a big gap, great gap. We screwed up. It's all our fault. I got news for you, folks. I've had this sense since I was a little boy. We aren't separate. We aren't separate at all. Matter of fact, we're all connected. I still got to talk to my childhood friend from Sandbox days. He remembers me better than I remember myself. He grew up and became the captain of a Ranger platoon. He just got interviewed, did some work with the guy from Star Trek. Whenever I try to go thinking about names, William Shatner. So he described William Shatner to me, and I'll spare you the details. But William Shatner evidently sat there and asked him, "Have you seen my work at Star Trek, right?" My buddy tells him, "No, sir, I was busy overseas fighting wars, fighting your battles overseas. I don't even know about it." And he was. That man has seen more action than anybody else I've ever met and known. He named off some of the places where he was. Hell, I didn't even know we'd been in there. Anyway, he wrote the book Psychic Warrior. was one of the leaders in remote viewing for the CIA. There's probably about more than half a dozen CIAs in the country, by the way, all separated up. They like to keep it compartmentalized like that. They like to keep them all separate so they don't realize what one another's doing, and they can't get together and conspire against the masters who own the place. Dualism. So the soul is separate from the body, which is not. And there my chairman was trying to show me off, and damn, I just couldn't go there. You know, it was about as bad as when I'm exposed to oh my God, when I'm exposed to a beautiful woman I'm attracted to. I am tongue-tied. My brain goes somewhere else. I can't say a doggone word. And unfortunately, these women can tell, and then they have no respect for me at all. They don't give a darn. And I'm like, yeah. And so I'm at a point now where it's like, yeah. As I get older, it's easier to shrug them off and realize that most of them got so many problems they're not worth spending time with. So you're not separate from Yahweh, Creator Father. He lives in us, just like Yeshua the Messiah told us when he arrived. And he also put his law in our hearts. It's etched in our hearts. He took our hearts of stone away and gave us a heart of flesh. And when Yahshua came here, he was announcing the arrival of the kingdom of heaven. It's not coming later, boys and girls. We here in America are living in the New Jerusalem. It's important you wake up and you realize this, because the devils are kicking our asses. They are winning right now, and they are destroying the earth. The earth groans for her saviors. Folks, I'm going to get a merchandise line. I'm going to do T-shirts and hats. I'm going to be putting up the PayPal account probably later today. And that's not for a donation. That's not for you to buy anything from me at all. It's for gifts. I like to avoid the fees associated with all the other stuff. So I think that when I set up this PayPal account properly and you say it's a gift, then I don't think you or I get taxed on it. So we get the full benefit. You get to give me the full amount, and I get to get the full amount. Please keep these things modest. I don't want it going to my head. I do need $2,000 more a month income for the purpose of traveling the country and prosecuting our mission. We need to save this nation. We do that by turning into a nation of Bible readers once again. When we were founded, everybody knew the Bible, including the people who were antagonistic to it knew the Bible. That's how come, what was his name, Thomas Paine, didn't like it at all. And there were some other leaders that didn't like it much. But you know what was interesting is they were kind men. That's the number one mark that you want to look for. If somebody's not kind, don't have anything to do with them. Walk away from them. Avoid them. Go hang out with somebody who's kind. You're doing business and they're not kind, avoid them. Heck, I go to these places and they act like the experts and I treat them like the experts and they just exploit the hell out of me. It used to be that maybe 1 out of every 4 of my transactions went to hell in a handbasket. It went south. It did not go very well. It didn't go my way. And as our civilization deteriorated, more of the transactions were coming apart. Now it's probably half. It's been half of my transactions for quite a while. It's more than half, actually. So we are deteriorating, and that's purposely built. That's not by accident. That is programmed in. And I know you think that psychologists couldn't hurt a fly. It's just talk therapy. Let me tell you something. It is invasive as hell, and it's dangerous as hell. And we manage the plantation for our masters, your masters. Welcome, fellow slaves. You think you're free. pretty good magic trick they pulled on you. They pulled the wool over your eyes, and you helped them the whole way because you like it that way. You love to hear smooth things. You love to be lied to. You love the deception. You love your delusion. The Bible says clearly, love truth and justice and the American way. Well, it doesn't say that. That was the motto for Superman show. I got taunted when I was a little boy, Clark Kent, whatever. When I was 13 or 14, that's what the college students said. Hell, I didn't care as long as they were giving me beer. Isaiah wrote about that too. Oh my Lord. I just realized that and remembered that. He says, anyway, I need you to know a lot. You need to know these things. So I tell you these things in story form as best I can so that they're a bit innocuous and you get lessons between the lines. So welcome to Group Therapy with Dr. Kent. By tuning into my show, to my station here, my channel, you're actually consenting to treatment. You don't want treatment? Change the channel. It's as simple as that. But you're here, and I think you'll like it. And we're not stuck with each other. You can change that channel. You're totally free. You can like my videos, and you can also subscribe. You can share those on social media, and you can make comments. Any comments you like, it'll help me. And if you do a thumbs up, great. If you do a thumbs down, I get to see it. Nobody else does, but that's supposed to help the algorithm as well. But if you're going to leave a thumbs down, tell me why. Please don't act like the dictators do and tell me it's against our communist community standards. But we can't tell you what you did wrong. God, how inane is that? Folks, the evil ones read the Bible too, and they're using it as a playbook. And right now, they have tried their first pestilence. It did not succeed. And if we read in Revelations, their goal was to kill a third of mankind. That's right. They got more than what you think, but they didn't get a third. And so the next thing is, again, a pestilence. Kill another third of us off. I think, from what I can tell, this one might be real. The last one was hocus pocus. Magic. Black magic. I wish that somebody out there would find Dr. Aranzula in Great Britain, share my video with her, and give her my apologies because I didn't take notes. Why didn't I take notes? I was mesmerized. I didn't know where to begin or end. Every word she uttered was important to me. I sat right in the front, in the middle. And up above in the back, above my head in the far end of the room were the rich bitches, and they would talk during her lectures. Very, very disrespectful. And they cheated themselves. I loved the Shakespeare classes. I loved everything else that we covered. She was one of my favorite teachers ever. Ranks right up there with Mrs. Cargyle in third grade. You know, when you make that mistake as a little boy and call your teacher Mom in front of the whole class, how embarrassing that is. Yeah. I did that with her, and I did that with Miss Lewandowski. I think it was Miss. She might have been Mrs. And that was fourth grade. Summer school, actually. I needed to do remedial work. My mom tells me the story that my teacher called her up, crying. Mrs. Lewandowski called her up crying in tears. And my mom wanted to know what the problem was. And, she told me, he corrects me. He tells me how to run my class. He corrects me. And she says, well, why don't you just do what I do? Whack him on the behind, spank him on the behind. So here's my mom giving her permission to spank me. And my teacher was crying. She says, you don't understand. He's right. Mrs. Lewandowski, I'm sure you're gone by now, but I'll tell you, I loved you a lot. You were a wonderful teacher. I am so sorry to hear that I made you cry. I didn't mean to tell you how to run the class. And I wasn't trying to make a scene, and I'm glad you didn't make a scene in front of the whole class. She liked to have the room with the desks around the wall. There was a little elevation there, and the floor in the middle was a little lower. She had her desk up on the elevated area, so we were all on the level around this giant pit, if you will, almost amphitheater-like. And I learned my mathematics, my arithmetic from Mrs. Lewandowski. She would give me the sheets, and I would go through it and just, memorize that stuff. That's what it took. So I just did all these arithmetic exercises. It was mimeographed sheets back then, the blue ink. They ran it through a mimeograph machine. It cranked out the papers. It smelled funny. Probably toxic as hell. I was in Germany then going to school. I didn't love the German people, but I admired them. They were better than we were. The countryside was pristine clean. What they had was well kept. They took pride in stuff. They didn't leave trash around like we do. I get back to the States, and the first thing I noticed driving down the highway was all the trash flying up out of the ditch going, wow, what the hell? Can't they clean up the trash? Living like pigs here. Even the farms were manicured. The little towns, the cobblestone places we drive through, all that was manicured. More importantly, the Germans were more honest than we were. They were intelligent, and they just told the truth so much that I would have to characterize them as they ratted themselves out all the time, like the innocent children they are. And of course, I didn't want to go to Germany because I had watched those videos of that madman, that rabid dog on television in black and white, screaming, yelling in big amphitheaters. I mean, he scared the hell out of me. All those banners around, and oh my God, he'd spitting out of his mouth and just, well, I didn't want to go there. I was afraid. I was 6 years old, and I did not want to go there. I saw that on television, and I didn't like that at all. I got there, and there was a bad scene or two. There really was, but I realized later that those had been victims of the war. They were war survivors. And they had seen some horrible stuff and been traumatized. Probably by Americans. Definitely by the Russians. And definitely by a couple of other groups I won't mention. But our own people did some bad stuff over there. We did more bad stuff after that war than during the war. I didn't realize that when I was living there, but later, after I became an adult, a mature adult at that, the inmates in the penitentiaries educated me on that stuff. They knew better than I did about the penitentiaries that were in Butzbach, Germany, and the Rhineland Meadows camps, which I think I can mention. General Eisenhower was responsible for those. Ike was a problem child. He wasn't all that good of a general. They killed the good general. They murdered him. They assassinated him. His own president sent a colonel after him, a colonel working for the OSS. However, that wasn't enough, and the murder was plotted by our president, the leader of Great Britain, and the leader of our ally in Russia. All three men concurred Patton had to go. So they arranged and set up the murder. Our president ordered it, but the man was too strong and they couldn't kill him. After a week in the hospital, he had recovered enough so they could transport him back to the States. They were going to bring him home. And that's when Stalin sent his man in to finish off General Patton. So Patton was murdered. Why? Because Patton was going to come back and tell us the truth. He was also going to end up becoming president. And we wouldn't have this mess, this shit show, this clown world going on in the world today. It would have all been changed. Patton would have told you the truth, and we would have got the country back then. But no, they kept hold of us. They kept their stranglehold on us. And along comes Kennedy, and a week before his assassination, he gives this incredible speech. Basically told us about them without telling us about them. And they killed him a week later to hide the fact that they own the planet and run the planet. So when you tell me the devil's not real, he's real. He's got real children running around on the earth doing his stuff. So you need to think of people as being different than what you've been thinking. So when you look at these two-legged creatures, you don't know if you're looking at a man. If you're looking at a mix of a man, okay. Or if you're looking at an angel doing his job, because this is what angels show up as, folks. They don't have wings. They show up looking just like us. Or if you're dealing with a fallen angel. Or if you're dealing with a hybrid, a fallen angel mixed with man. Yeah. So we assume everybody else is like us. That's our standard. They wouldn't do that to anybody else. They wouldn't hurt a fly. I mean, who in their right mind would want to do that stuff? You know, kill people, poison people, do horrible things. But you need to realize that most men could be called sinners. We screw up at times. So a sinner does make mistakes. Big deal. Okay? The basic heart is good, and the striving there is good. Sometimes it's, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. But then we actually have this other being out there that is evil. That's at its core. So they just don't do sins. But yet these guys at the churches tell you we're all sinners. No, there's a difference. There's some real evil among us. And we've actually got walking, talking sociopaths. Most of them are presidents of corporations or politicians in office. But you don't realize that. And you might think, well, sociopaths they belong in prison, right? They're all in prison, right? No. The average sociopath isn't in the penitentiary. The average sociopath wears a suit and wears leather shoes, makes a lot of money, hides his identity or her identity, and we've had a lot more female sociopaths lately, and they know who they are and what they're about, and they walk among us freely and predate upon us. They look at the rest of us as cannon fodder, fish, suckers. We're just targets. We're just here to provide resources for them while they live off us and leech on us. Now, the United States of America had a 4% rate of sociopathy back when we were a fairly stable culture. Now, today, in my estimation, we're running past 7%. So instead of it being 1 out of every 25 of us, it's like 1 out of every 15 or 16 of us is a sociopath. So don't tell me. And when you're in a big room full of dancers, ask yourself, which one's the murderer? I guarantee you got one in there. You got 200 people in there. You got a murderer in there. Don't think that it's that rare. And don't think that you can judge the other books by what you have in your heart. No, you can't. You need to stop making assumptions. they get you in trouble. In contrast, Japan's rate of sociopathy is only 1.7%, less than 2%. Why is that? It's because they don't encourage outsiders. They have a homogeneous society. It's uniform. Everybody understands the social contract. Everybody understands the rules. They know what's expected of them. But in America, it's all hodgepodge at this point. And it's getting worse. I do need you to subscribe. I need you to buy one of my Bibles. And if you want to support the show, order a case of Bibles. You can resell them. You can go down the street handing them to people. You can walk in the prisons, do a prison ministry, and give those to those folks. They really will appreciate them. It's the best Bible ever in the whole history of the world, except maybe the ones that were written in the original languages back then when they were read in the original context. What happens if you read the Bible? You access the mind of God. You will be blessed. You will prevail. You will know right from wrong. You will know the better choice. And there might even be a little voice in there that steps in and tells you, stop, wait at the light, don't go. While a big truck goes screaming through the intersection running a red light. Yeah. You aren't separated from Yahweh. That's a big lie. Now, if you're breaking the law, that's another story. If you're violating natural law, if you're violating the Ten Commandments, and if you're violating the other directives as well, you don't get the benefits. If you want to understand something, go to the first 5 books in Exodus. You'll find the 10 Commandments. I think it's chapter 20. However, in Leviticus and Deuteronomy, you will see the blessings for obedience. And then you will see the curses for disobedience. The curses are twice as long as the blessings. When you read those, ask yourself, gee, what country does this remind me of? Those curses for disobedience are America today. And they're not in any particular order. However, it is terminal. So we are disobeying natural law, we're disobeying God's law, and as a result, all the stuff that's detailed in there is coming to full fruition, and it ends with the demise of America. You want to save America? You have only one option. You sit on your ass and you read the Bible. Which Bible is the best Bible? Well, by God, it's the one you read. So if it's not mine, it'll be another one. But I think mine is better. It's better than the original King James. It is the King James. Accurately translated. We fix the errors of the original King James Bible, which they pulled from the Septuagint, which had a lot of errors in it. Folks, I think that's about it for me this morning. My mind is a bit all over the place. I try to get a flow of consciousness in, and I try not to interrupt it, which shows you the state of my mind. Might reveal too much about me, but that's the way it has to be. When I get these things going, sometimes things come out of my mouth that I forgot from a long time ago, and sometimes I marvel, where did that come from? Or I hadn't thought about that in a while. Some of this I'm synthesizing on the fly and coming up with. Some of this stuff is actually stuff from so long ago. And I know I get off track a little bit, and I still try to get back and tell you the stories. And I listen to every one of these so I will know where I screwed up and went off track. And with time and exercise, I hope that you will observe and see me getting better. I'm not giving up. I'm growing. I probably isolate too much. You want to pray for me, pray for the channel, but pray to Yahweh. Don't pray to any other gods or lords. I don't even want you using the generic name God. Use the name Yahweh if you're going to pray for me. Also, if you're going to pray to Jesus and do your prayer in his name, well, that's a bunch of hocus pocus too, because you don't know his real name. So do it in his real name, Yeshua. And we call him the Messiah, not the Christ. I'm still working on that one, by the way. I'm still reading the Bible, trying to make discernment on that. And when I get clarity, I will bring it to you. That's the dog's ball. She loves it. And you can pray for me that my dog might have a better master, a better owner, and I might give her clarification. I need to get remedial work. She's excellent. I mean, she's really good. She's too good. It's like driving a racing car, and I'm not a race driver, so it's a waste. She's a super dog, and I know it. She knows I love her, but I'm a dolt when it comes to handling a dog like this. These dogs need to have a job, and this one's having too much of a vacation to be happy. She's not happy. She wants discipline. So I have to pull myself up. I need money. I want to buy a new diesel pusher. It's not new. No. I don't want to buy anything new. I like old classics. So it's on the cheap end, real cheap compared to the cost of the average diesel pusher today. So I'm looking at maintaining my humble, meager lifestyle, but it will be a step up. I will be more functional. I'll be able to carry cases of Bibles, be able to carry whatever I want in this rig. And it costs money to maintain them, and it means I'm going to have to be parking in parks more often, so I'll be spending, and it's really expensive just to spend a night somewhere. I like pulling over and boondocking, which is what I'm doing now. It's cheaper. I'm independent. I can come and go as I please. If I don't like my neighbors, I can leave, I can move. I can go with this one, I can go into national park. So this is one advantage I have, but I just don't have the inclination to go hang out there by myself. I'd rather talk with fellow believers, meet them, learn more. I'd rather do that because I like talking about the truth in the Bible more than anything else. I could say something, but it would be a little too harsh for ladies' ears for sure. Anyway, I like it better than... Okay. You can read my mind between the lines. I like it. It doesn't get me in nearly as much trouble well, okay. Enough of that track. And you could pray for me also. I've done everything in this life except one thing. It was like when I had the 2 strokes and I had read every book on my shelf and every book those led me to, except for one. Guess which one? Yeah, that one. I hadn't read the Bible. I'd actually been to a Bible college for a seminar. They kind of ran me off. They didn't like me very much. But I appreciate going there, and I appreciate leaving too. I'm sorry, folks. That churchianity stuff, the delusion, the great delusion, that's causing us trouble. We need to come out of that. You need to sit on your butt and read the Bible. You don't need to go to church to feel good about yourself. You don't need to go there so that they tell you how bad you are and how they know everything. They'll tell you everything, and they lie to you about it all anyway. So it's not doing you any good. So if you say, which church to go to? Well, I got a place I go to, but it's real small, and I don't want it getting crowded on me, and I don't want it coming apart. So that's just my private refuge for a little bit. And when I can't get there, and I can get there now, when I can't get there, I tune in on the phone. I used to go to a little place outside of Fort Wayne. The pastor is not doing well. He got sick a few years ago, and I miss him dearly. But, I will talk about him, and I credit these gentlemen with their ideas every chance I get. And there's a few more men I'd like to meet. I'd like to meet Blanchard. I like his book. It's quite nice. I don't agree with everything, but that's okay. And you and I don't have to agree with everything. You may think, why Noah's flood was worldwide. Or you can say, no, Noah's flood was local. I don't care. You and I will know someday what the truth is, and at that point we probably better agree, but we're going to know someday about that. And I think there were 2 floods in the Bible, maybe 3. So it covers it both. And I'm working on everything else so I can cover it as well. So I don't care what country you're from, what country you're in. This is the best Bible. I hope you know the English language. This Bible is being translated into a Filipino language. I don't think it's well, the one of the bird. What's that? Tagalog? Whatever. Tagalog? I think it's one of the other languages. There's several languages in the Philippines. And the Philippines are really nice people, so I'm glad they're getting that Bible. I'd prefer to work on the Apocrypha myself and a super Bible, which I will be proposing. I have no idea. It might get rejected or it might get approved and only to be rejected later, but I want to put together the best Bible ever. And it's going to be several more books than 66. Several more books. We're going to get the big guns out. We're going to really fire some cannons. You need to understand the evil ones are waging war. Every time they bring on a new general, they fire the cannons, the war cannons. Pay attention to what I say and pay attention to what's going on. When you get to be the level of consciousness I am, you realize that those hermits that we thought were so doggone weird when we were younger, they had it figured out. People aren't really that good. They aren't really that nice. They're very unaware. They're like children. So when you walk or talk with these adults you run around with, think of them as being 9 years of age. And some of them are only 7. You need to understand they're never going to grow up. That's the average person around the world. Very immature. Now, I've done everything except follow the prime directive, which is be fruitful and multiply. That's what the directive given by the Creator to all of those of us on the earth. And we are earthlings. We can't live off this planet. Most of your biome, your genetics are from the biome, that is, most of your genetics are from the biome. And so that's from the earth around you, the bacteria on you, the bacteria you host in your bodies. All kinds of things contribute to your genes, not just your parents. So that's another lie they tell you. I haven't married and gotten children, had children. Would I do it today? Oh, yeah. It was an order, so I would do it. So if you pray for me along those lines, be really careful, because I just don't want to argue with somebody under my roof at all. Don't want that. And of course, if I'm going to have children, she's going to have to be way younger than me. We're talking about a great divide. And anyway, right now in these days, women don't like us men much. They're very merciless. They're getting worse. Would I be a passport bro? Go overseas? No. Very few overseas attract me, appeal to me. But more importantly, if I bring one here, they get ruined anyway in our culture. And if I stayed there, I'm sorry. This is where I belong. This is the New Jerusalem. You're living in it, baby. Read that Bible. It describes this place perfectly to a T. Read that Bible carefully. And there actually is the new temple. It's been built already. Yeah. You want to see the new temple? Don't go over to Israel. You ain't going to see it there. It's never going to be there. You got a mirror handy? Yeah. You are the new temple. Yahweh has blessed. Yahweh will bless. May He keep you. And may you be blessed today. May you enjoy your food and your drink. May you sleep well, peacefully at night. May everything you put your hand to be blessed. May all your endeavors succeed. Above all, read your Bibles and pray to Yahweh that He may give you the Holy Spirit and open your eyes so that you can see, and open your ears so that you can hear, and that you may understand the Bible. 85% of it's in the Old Testament alone. Modern churches say you don't need it. Really? Yahweh bless.